Hello, my name is Eric Hoffman. I am the VP for Research at ReveraGen Biopharma, and I appreciate the opportunity to do little steps it's given me to talk to you about vamorolone, a potentially safer alternative to corticosteroids. Vamorolone is being developed by ReveraGen Biopharma, a privately held company funded by governments in the US, EU, and nonprofit foundations with a license to Synthera. And I am also co-founder and CEO of ReveraGen, co-founder of TRINS, Agata, and work at the Binghamton University, State University of New York. So in DMD, standard of care, as recently published, a key part of standard of care is corticosteroids. So corticosteroids have a number of considerations regarding the age of patient, stage of disease, but part of this is also the side effects and the risk factor for those side effects. And why do corticosteroids work so well? They're very strong drugs, deflazacort, prednisone, and they're related to your normal hormone that wakes you up every morning called cortisol. They bind to a drug target, which is the glucocorticoid receptor. And when that drug and that receptor come together, they activate many genes in your genome and turns them on. Part of this activity is to suppress innate immunity danger signals. So when there's a cell damage or a virus or any insult to your cells, this is the first line of defense when they turn on NF-kappa B in a pro-inflammatory response. And the corticosteroids suppress that pro-inflammatory response, so they are anti-inflammatory. And we know that Duchenne has a strong inflammatory component in muscle. Dystrophin's missing from fetal life, but once a child is born with Duchenne, the muscle gets upset. It knows something is wrong and it turns on this NF-kappa B and this pro-inflammatory cascade. And that seems to do more damage to the muscle. So corticosteroids help suppress that own inflammation or danger signals due to dystrophin deficiency. And that seems to why they work in Duchenne muscular dystrophy. But as you know, they also come with lots of side effects. In the US, deflazacort was recently approved by the FDA specifically for DMD. And this is the label from the FDA showing all the warnings and precautions of endocrine function, cardiovascular, renal function, behavioral mood disturbances, effects on bones, et cetera, et cetera. So with the benefit of corticosteroids comes many of these side effects. So our goal with the vamorolone program was to understand the chemistry of how the receptor and drug interacted and see if we could separate the benefit or the efficacy, the benefit to Duchenne patients from making them stronger and walk longer from the side effects that detract from quality of life. And so here the green is prednisone and the blue is the receptor, just parts of the glucocorticoid receptor and how the drug is fitting into the pocket of the receptor. And here's the X-ray structure and you see how the drug is contacting the receptor. That's prednisone and this is deflazacort. You see it's almost identical. You can see the same contact spots. With vamorolone, what we did is twist it and take out one of the contact sites, specifically this one here. You see that there's a contact site to this ASN33, and that's lost in vamorolone. So what I'll show you is that seems to separate out the benefit from the side effects. Here we see evidence of benefit after 6 months treatment of Duchenne muscular dystrophy patients. I'm just showing here 6-minute walk, although this was published last year. And here we're increasing the dose of vamorolone in Duchenne muscular dystrophy boys, and these included boys in Israel, Yoram Nevo's clinic. You see at a very low dose, they did not get better. At a higher dose, they seemed to walk longer. And as we increased the dose, the boys seemed to get better and better and stronger and stronger. And that's similar to what you see with corticosteroids. And so that was significant across many different outcome measures. So those boys have continued on to 18 months of treatment, 1.5 years, and that paper was recently published. And what we see is continued improvement over 1.5 years. So you can see, just for example, 6-minute walk test, the boys over 1.5 years improved nearly 100 meters, whereas most boys with DMD over a year and a half either decline or are stable. And that was similar to all outcome measures tested. So North Star Ambulatory Assessment, for example, improved 6 points from the maximum 42. So this is just a diagram of a year and a half of treatment and the different dose groups, and then comparing it to both corticosteroid naive, placebo from another, from the Synergy Natural History Study, and also corticosteroid treated boys from the natural history study. And you can see that the benefit is roughly the same for these three groups compared to steroids, whereas steroid naive kids do worse. So again, steroids help Duchenne muscular dystrophy, show some efficacy, as does vamorolone, whereas steroid naive kids do not do as well. Time to stand was a bit more variable, but as I'll show you, the kids treated with vamorolone keep on growing, whereas kids with deflazacort prednisone stop growing, they're stunted of growth. And then time to stand starts being a different test in those kids on vamorolone versus corticosteroids. Now, just to point out that these first set of studies with 48 DMD boys were open label studies. They were not double blind or placebo controlled. We tested a very broad range of doses. We looked both over 6 months and a year and a half. The efficacy seems similar to corticosteroids, but these were not head-to-head comparisons. So what about safety? Were we able to separate out the benefit from the side effects? So one we could look at is stunting of growth. And here we're comparing a published study that was used for drug approval in the US for deflazacort and DMD. And if we look at how the kids are growing after treatment with deflazacort, you see they're all going negative. So their growth is stopping or slowing because of a side effect of stunting of growth. And if we look at 95% confidence interval, you see all the boys are slowing their growth. If we look at vamorolone treated kids, actually they're all positive. So they're actually catching up to their peers. Duchenne kids are a little short to begin with. And then it seems with vamorolone that we're getting some catch-up growth. So we don't see the stunting of growth. But again, this is an indirect comparison. This is not in the same trial at the same time. We can also look at physician-reported safety concerns. A common one is cushingoid, where the face swells up. And you can see in the deflazacort study, most of the children showed cushingoid, whereas very few of vamorolone-treated boys did. Similar weight gain, a bit less, excess hair growth. We're not seeing that with vamorolone, but about a third of kids with the deflazacort. And behavior change also seems to be different in physician-reported. So to summarize, vamorolone seems to show similar efficacy to corticosteroids, but these are open label studies. Vamorolone seems to show less safety concerns. We currently are running a trial which includes children in Yoram Nevo's clinic of 121 boys in a double-blind registration study. We expect to read that out, so get top-line data on vamorolone versus placebo and prednisone early to mid next year. Structure-activity relationships are consistent with the clinical findings. We do see that about 95% of families and physicians have opted to remain on vamorolone long-term rather than transition to corticosteroid standard of care at the end of trials, suggesting a high degree of satisfaction of treatment of both the families and their physicians. So just to end, I'm thinking of what questions you might have. Would vamorolone have potential efficacy in other chronic inflammatory diseases? Yes, we have promising preclinical studies in many mouse models of asthma, multiple sclerosis, inflammatory bowel disease, brain tumors, and arthritis. But we're focusing on Duchenne initially. Assuming approval in Duchenne from the FDA, what is the anticipated time period for that approval? So for FDA, it'd probably be Q1 in 2022. For EMA and UK, a bit later, say Q1 in 2023. That's assuming, again, that these drugs, we do show compelling evidence of efficacy in the current trial. Other questions about what about older and younger DMD boys, including those already treated with corticosteroids? We do have a planned clinical trial called 006, which is proposed proposing enrollment from 2 years to 18 years, including both steroid-treated and steroid non-treated. We should begin enrollment next year on that. Right now, that's funded for Canadian sites by Jesse's Journey and potential Duchenne UK grant for UK sites. Another thing is that there's been some press regarding business of ReveraGen. Santhera has exercised the option for future sales and marketing of Vamorolone, all indications, all countries, but ReveraGen continues to manage and run the clinical trials and programs. We anticipate there'll be a gradual transition from ReveraGen to Santhera over the next 12 months. ReveraGen and University of Pittsburgh have recently received NIH funding for a Vamorolone trial in Becker muscular dystrophy, and we anticipate enrollment into that Becker trial next year in the US and Italy. I'd like to end by thanking all the foundations and governments that have supported the Vamorolone program and look forward to working hard to bring Vamorolone to all the Duchenne patients worldwide.